Okay. Hi, Scott. How are you?
Hi, Doug. I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing fine. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the
Good.
show. Nice to have you here. So, you've got a book out called Long Term Leader. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right at the top of your bio, I'm just going to read this. It says 79% of employees will quit due to lack of appreciation, according to new statistics via Zipia. Okay. Why is that? Why are they going to quit?
Well, it's above and beyond just a lack of appreciation. What it typically is, because if you really think about it, most people in the world want to do well. They want to be good at their jobs. They want to perform. They want to, they want to feel like they're making a little bit of a difference. The reason that you have this disillusionment often is, I think, in my experience, has been that we put really good people in the wrong spots. And what I mean by that is we end up a lot of times not really understanding the nature of a human being, and we have jobs that require them to actually perform things that aren't in their nature to do, or aren't in their unique ability, is another way to put it. But it goes deeper than that. It goes to what they value. And so having people in roles that align with their values, not necessarily the values of the boss or the leader, and then having the leader, wise enough to recognize that and to make those connections and match those people properly with what they value. Then I think you have a much better chance of having long-term employee engagement because they're doing something that they actually believe in, they want to do, they value, and it will come much easier to them. They'll have an innate understanding of what they do and why it's important. You just eliminate a lot of problems when you can get to the core of their values. And what what I'm not talking about values like integrity and perseverance and things of that nature. I'm talking about values such as, am I naturally competitive? Values like, do I like to lead? Do I like to talk? Another value would be, do I like to follow the rules? Do I like to, I approach things with through regulation and rules? Am I altruistic? Do I value, truly making a difference to others? Am I more about myself, or am I more about, do I value the team doing well? Those are the kind of things that I'm talking about when I'm talking about values.
Do you find this to be more true with people who do sort of mundane, repetitive jobs as opposed to management, or is it pretty much, does it go through the whole gamut of people?
Well, even a mundane job can be very fulfilling to the right person. Just so you know, what we might call mundane to the right person might be very fulfilling if you match them up properly. If they happen to be, if they happen to be matched up, not just in terms of not just in terms of values, but there's other factors. It's how they behave. It's also their natural talents. So, I don't know if you've ever seen these guys like that make cigars. Have you ever been on a trip and you walk into a cigar shop and there's a guy sitting there making cigars, rolling cigars out? I would want to have toothpicks in my eyes, right? Sitting there doing something like that. But when you look at the guy doing it, he's like a master craftsman, and he's digging what he's doing, and he's doing it. He's rolling out like a cigar every minute, and so that's obviously a role or a job that aligns with what the guy's natural gifts are, and he values doing a good job rolling out perfect cigars, type thing.
Well, I have seen videos of the ones in Cuba, and
Okay,
but those guys, that's almost like an art form to
it
make those,
is. Yes,
I was
yes.
thinking more of like somebody working in a factory assembly line or something. I think that's, but you can apply the same philosophy to it, yeah?
Yeah, yeah. Even the guy on the factory line, if he's got to do a spot weld, or he's got to put a piece and part in place, or he's got to, pull out the bad apples, or whatever it is he's doing, he might value being the very, very best at that particular job. I had a kid that I worked with at an apple butter festival one year. His name was Marcus, and part of making apple butter is you can't let any seeds get into the apple, to the mix. And this kid took upon himself, he was so proud of the fact that he would pull out every little seed in the apple butter. If it was up to me, I would have cooked everything in there. I didn't care. But for him, it was like a point of pride, So I wouldn't discount any role or think any role is less than another role. I would just make sure that I'm matching that role with the person's natural and innate desire and willingness and excitement to do it.
So the book Long-Term Leader, this book is geared towards the leaders, the CEOs, the managers, upper management, to recognize these qualities in people?
Yeah, like I wrote the book really for entrepreneurs. Somebody who is, already created a company that is, got a good product. They have demand. They have a good business model. Their franchise system is a hot franchise system. They've just developed a new device for medical care or whatever it is. And their company is growing. And they have this need to then staff the company. They have a need to have managers and leaders that lead the staff so that they can, absolutely, deliver on the product or service that they have created. And entrepreneurs typically are great at the vision, great at inventing. They're wonderful at selling it because they're so passionate about it. And in many cases, we think of an entrepreneur visionary as like a Steve Jobs or an Elon Musk or those kind of guys. Well, they obviously had massive talent. But your typical day-to-day entrepreneur who may have the same passion and drive as a Steve Jobs may not possess the ability. And even, if you read the stories about Jobs, he fell short many times on his leadership, where he would burn through people and have setbacks, and it would cost them thousands and millions of dollars in delayed deliveries. And, there were flaws in the product when it first started. But over time, there have to have been some long-term leaders in the Apple organization that over time assembled, committed, more long-term teams where people have, moved into what I would call unconscious competence in their job. And when you have people that are unconsciously competent in a role because they've been there a while and they've mastered it, and you have a bunch of those folks working together, you have a real opportunity to have a long, profitable company because you're not going churning and burning through people and retraining and coaching and correcting and, doing all the stuff that, those are the landmines that you run into.
Do you think a lot of the leaders in the United States and the big corporations, they don't get this, that they're too focused on the bottom line?
Yeah, I don't think they really even understand what leadership is all about. It's certainly not about being the boss. In this day and age, in fact, many workers almost come in actually and halfway resenting the boss. So the boss has to win their hearts and minds now, has to win them over. And one of the methods I talk about in my book is how you can help people that are working for you. They're naturally a little skittish around the big guy, right? So the big guy has to show up as a very real, down-to-earth person. Yes, somebody who's smart, knows how things work, and has a vision, but in their approach and how they, the way they communicate, their body language, their tonality, their posture, their voice, the way they, smile or don't smile. These are all things that help people feel they need to feel a couple of ways. They have to have, first of all, they want to feel like they're being asked to do things, not told to do things. So they want a requestive boss, somebody that comes in and says, "Hey, have you thought about this?" I know you've been working on this project. What have you come up with that you're proud of? And be inclusive in the way that the approach is. And then whatever they say, it doesn't matter what they say. Whatever they say, the first job of the leader is to make sure that they feel safe saying whatever it is that they say. Why is that so important, Doug? Because when people feel safe and they feel like you're actually listening to them, then they tell you what's really going on. They tell you what the real problems are, the challenges, the bottlenecks. They'll even tell you if there's a person not pulling their weight. And a bad leader, you won't get that kind of information. You will not, because they're too afraid that you won't be able to handle it properly. They're too afraid that you're going to blow somebody up, or you're going to blame somebody, or you're going to embarrass somebody. And all these emotions enter into the human condition around the workplace. And so the leader that can take away the drama, take away the angst, take away the uncertainty, and so people feel like the leader has their back. They're more likely to really bring the leader in and give them the opportunity to serve the team at a much higher level, because they'll be dealing in truth, not in facade, if you will.
So the days of the drill sergeant military sort of template of running a company, I think those days should be over, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's a time when you can be the drill sergeant. There are specific moments when you may need to, just let them have it a little bit. But you can't, I mean, those have to be very rare. And if you've done all the other things I talk about in my method, then when you walk in and you have the veins popping out of your neck because you see some really, bonehead thing that somebody's done, they're going to automatically respect you, because they know that the only reason you would get that way is because it's a really serious and important issue. It's like the kid that cried wolf, Doug, right? If you do it all the time, it doesn't mean anything. So you can save those moments. They're kind of like chits that you use. You know what a chit is, right? It's like a deposit. And if you've made over time, just, people feel like you care about them, protect them, they feel safe, they buy into you because they trust you. Ultimately, they trust you. When that time comes, when when there's a real big deal or something happening, you'll have their attention, and that's okay.
So it's
Especially
more
if they're behind.
so it's more about leading with respect rather than leading with fear. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I have a term. I have a term that one of my great mentors taught me many, many years ago, Gary Keller. And Gary said, a great leader has to be appropriate in the moment. And that has stuck with me. And that's been a foundational principle. Obviously, have you ever seen the boss go in and start questioning an employee, and maybe she starts crying or he starts crying, and then the boss continues to question them, right? After they're already upset about something, that's the time to say, hey, I can tell you're not feeling good about what's going on. Let's regroup and do this later. Please go to, take a break. Do what you need to do. I feel, I don't feel good that you're feeling like this. That's appropriateness. It doesn't mean that you feel sorry for them. It doesn't mean that you forgive them if they're repeat offender of not doing what they're supposed to do or anything like that. It just means that you show up with empathy and you let them know that, listen, you're a human being and I know you're upset, and I'd really like to give you some space to regroup. But you see some bosses that'll just go in and just keep pounding and pounding and pounding. And that's when people resign. And not only will that person resign, but other people on the team might resign because they can't handle the way you treated that employee.
Well, Scott, on that note, we're going to have to wind this down. We are out of time. Thank you so much for coming on the show. My guest is Scott Agnew. The book is called Long-Term Leadership. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
Yes, it's just simply www.long-termleader.com. Long-termleader.com.
Okay. How long has the book been out?
It's been out about 7 months.
Is doing all right?
Doing well, yes, getting good traction.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you again for coming on the show. It was nice talking to you, and best of luck.
Thank you, Doug.